The sun had begun its slow descent on the horizon as I settled into my lifeguard tower, overlooking the pristine beach. The sound of waves crashing against the shore was a soothing backdrop to my thoughts as I scanned the waters, ever vigilant for any signs of danger. Little did I know that what started as a routine day on the job would lead me into a chilling true horror story that would forever change my perception of the sea. I had always been drawn to the water, its vastness, its beauty, its power. As a lifeguard, I felt a sense of duty to protect those who ventured into the ocean's embrace. But that day, as I watched families play in the shallows and surfers ride the waves, a sense of unease settled over me. There was something about the water that felt different, a stillness, a sense of foreboding that sent a shiver down my spine. I pushed aside the feeling, attributing it to an overactive imagination. After all, I had spent countless hours on this beach, and I knew its rhythms and quirks like the back of my hand. As the day progressed, the unease intensified. The waves seemed to grow larger, more aggressive, crashing against the shore with an almost unnatural force. Swimmers ventured farther out, their laughter and shouts masking the warning signs that only I seemed to perceive. And then it happened. A scream from the water's edge. A mother frantically pointing to the churning waves. My heart raced as I grabbed my rescue buoy and sprinted down the sand, my training kicking in. I plunged into the water, swimming against the current, my eyes scanning the surface for any sign of distress. I reached the struggling swimmer, a young boy who had been caught in a rip current. I pulled him onto the rescue buoy and began the arduous swim back to shore. The waves seemed to fight against me, each one a powerful force that threatened to pull us under. But I persisted, fueled by adrenaline and determination. Finally, with one last burst of effort, I reached the shallows and carried the boy to safety. Gasping for air, I collapsed onto the sand, my heart pounding in my chest. The boy was shaken but alive, his tearful gratitude a reminder of why I had chosen this profession. As the day drew to a close and the sun dipped below the horizon, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had plagued me. I watched the water, its surface now serene and calm, and wondered if I had imagined the strange shifts in its behavior. Perhaps the rescue had been a result of my heightened awareness, a lifeguard's instinct. I made my way back to my lifeguard tower, the cool breeze a welcome respite from the day's heat. I checked my phone, expecting messages of praise and gratitude from the boy's family, but there were no notifications. Confused, I scrolled through my contacts, searching for any trace of the mother and her son. But their names were nowhere to be found. A sense of unease settled over me once again, and I decided to ask my fellow lifeguards if they had witnessed the rescue. But as I approached them, their expressions were blank, their responses vague. It was as if they had no memory of the incident, as if the rescue had never occurred. Doubt gnawed at me, and I began to question my own perception of reality. Had I imagined the entire rescue? Was the strange behavior of the water a product of my overactive imagination? The unease grew into a full-fledged anxiety, a weight that seemed to settle in the pit of my stomach. That night, as I lay in bed, the sound of waves crashing against the shore echoed in my ears. Sleep eluded me, my mind plagued by a mix of doubt and fear. And then, just as I was about to drift into unconsciousness, a whisper that seemed to come from the depths of the ocean itself. "Help us." The words were a haunting plea carried by the wind and waves. I sat up, my heart racing, as the voice grew louder, more insistent. "Help us, lifeguard." I stumbled out of bed and made my way to the window, my eyes scanning the moonlit beach. But there was nothing, only the dark expanse of sand and sea. The voice had faded, replaced by the sounds of the night. The following days were marked by a growing sense of paranoia. The water seemed to call to me, its surface a mirror that concealed secrets beyond my understanding. I watched the swimmers, the surfers, the families playing in the shallows, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was lurking beneath the surface, something that sought my attention. I approached my fellow lifeguards, desperate for answers, but their responses were evasive. It was as if they were concealing something, as if they knew more than they were willing to admit. The unease grew into frustration, and I decided to confront the ocean itself. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky turned shades of orange and pink, I stood at the water's edge. The waves lapped at my feet, a gentle caress that seemed to hide a deeper, more sinister force. I stared out into the horizon, my gaze unwavering, and I spoke aloud. "What do you want from me?" The wind carried my words, and the water seemed to respond. The surface churned, the waves growing larger and more turbulent. And then, just beyond the breakers, a figure appeared, a figure that seemed to rise from the depths. It was a woman, her form translucent and ethereal. Her eyes were a piercing blue and her hair flowed around her like tendrils of seaweed. She reached out to me, her fingers brushing against the surface of the water, and her voice, the same voice that had whispered to me in the night, echoed in my mind. "Help us. Lifeguard." I stepped back, my heart pounding as realization dawned on me. The woman was the one I had rescued, the mother of the young boy caught in the rip current. But her form was different now, as if she had become a part of the ocean itself. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice trembling. "We are the Forgotten," she replied, her voice a haunting melody. "Trapped between worlds, lost to the depths. We seek release, redemption." I stared at her, my mind racing to comprehend the words she spoke. The forgotten souls lost at sea, bound to the ocean's embrace. The woman was a manifestation of their collective agony, a vessel through which they could communicate with the living. "You can help us," she continued, her gaze pleading. "Guide us to the light and break the cycle of our torment." I was overwhelmed by a mixture of fear and empathy. The woman's presence was both ethereal and unsettling, a reminder of the mysteries that the ocean held. And yet her plea tugged at my heart, awakening a sense of duty within me. "How?" I asked, my voice barely audible. She reached out again, her fingers brushing against my skin. In that touch, I felt a rush of emotions, sorrow, pain, longing. And then a surge of energy pulsed through me, a force that seemed to connect me to the depths of the ocean itself. "Embrace the water," she whispered. "Become the bridge between worlds." With a mixture of trepidation and determination, I stepped into the water. The waves enveloped me, their touch cold and inviting. As I waded deeper, the water seemed to come alive, its currents caressing my skin, its whispers echoing in my ears. I closed my eyes, allowing the sensations to wash over me. And then, in the darkness behind my eyelids, I saw images, fragments of memories, snippets of lives lost to the sea. The Forgotten were reaching out to me, their collective consciousness merging with mine. With each passing moment, I felt a deeper connection to the ocean, a bond that transcended time and space. The water whispered their stories to me, their pain and longing etched into my mind. And then, as I opened my eyes, I realized that the woman was beside me, her form glowing with an otherworldly light. "Guide us," she whispered, her voice a gentle breeze. "Lead us to the light." I nodded, my heart filled with a sense of purpose. I raised my arms, my hands breaking the surface of the water. And then, with a surge of energy, I sent out a beacon, a signal that pierced the veil between worlds. The beach seemed to shimmer, a portal opening between the realms. The Forgotten began to emerge, their forms ethereal and luminous. They floated towards the portal, their faces filled with a mixture of hope and gratitude. And then, one by one, they crossed over into the light, their presence fading until they were no more than echoes in the wind. The woman lingered, her gaze fixed on me. And then, with a final bittersweet smile, she too crossed over, her form dissipating like mist in the air. As the portal closed, a sense of peace settled over me. The unease that had plagued me was replaced by a profound understanding, an awareness of the ocean's secrets, its mysteries, and the souls that it held within its depths. From that day forward, I continued my duties as a lifeguard, my perception forever altered by the encounter with the Forgotten. The beach seemed different now, a place of beauty and danger, a realm that held secrets beyond the surface. And as I watched the waves, I couldn't help but feel a sense of connection to the depths of the sea, to the souls that had found their release, and to the chilling true lifeguard horror story that had forever changed my life.